We're here with Cooking with Frag Shredded Beef Tacos. This is the 5th episode since the reboot, 4th installment for the Patreon. Thank you all for your support for that. I love shredded beef tacos. I've always loved them since I've been a kid. I've been working on a recipe for shredded beef tacos for a long time. I've been fine-tuning this one for quite a while. But let's hop over to the stove and we'll talk about the shredded beef. Then we'll also be making a fresh Pico De Gallo and assembling some awesome tacos. Okay, so we used a crock pot to make this. We do a crock pot meat quite often in our house. It's a very easy way to get really tender meat. You can do it chicken, pork, beef, whatever you want. But the recipe for this broth is about 2.5 pounds of beef, 1 cup of chili powder, 2 tablespoons cumin, 1 teaspoon coriander, 1/2 cup apple cider vinegar, 1 teaspoon seasoning salt, 1 teaspoon onion powder, 1 teaspoon garlic powder, and 2 quarts of broth. Of course, this recipe will be posted below the video as well. Basically, you just put all that stuff in here and let it sit for about 6 hours, and what you're left with is this amazing fall-apart tender piece of beef. So we're going to slap this in the pan here real quick. Let's talk about vinegar real quick when you're doing crock-pot meats or braising meats. It helps break the meat apart and make it fork tender, which is a great thing. Just going to get these strings off, and then we'll break it apart. When you're shredding beef especially, you don't want to over-shred it, so you try to be kind of gentle with it and break it apart gently. Come on, string. Very good. Now, you can use just about any cut of beef for this. It doesn't need to be an expensive cut at all. Braising or crock-potting is a great way to cook cheaper cuts of meat to make them absolutely delicious. Now, if you want a slightly less spicy meat, you can just use less chili powder. If you want more spice, you can add jalapenos, serranos, you name it, into the broth. So when you're breaking apart the meat, you really just kind of want to give it a little push like this. So you end up with nice big chunks of meat rather than super fine shredded. If you get into having it can be completely shredded, the texture's off. So we're just going to break this apart. Then we're going to stir the liquid. Try to get some from the under so you don't get all the fat on the top. And just put about a ladle of that in there. Two ladles it is. And we're going to put this on a super, super low heat and just kind of let it sit there while we're making the rest of our stuff. Adding some of the broth back is very important to keep the meat moist. If you're going to cool the meat down later, make sure you do that. Okay, we're going to head over to the cutting board now and make our Pico De Gallo. Pico De Gallo is super simple to make. All you need is onion, tomato, cilantro, lime, and salt. There's certainly more variations of Pico De Gallo. This is very basic, non-spicy. You can add jalapenos, serrano peppers. You can add garlic to it, all sorts of stuff. But this is going to be a basic Pico De Gallo. It's one of my favorite condiments to have with tacos. It's very easy to make and inexpensive. All right. Steal our knife real quick. Give it an old wipe. All right, cutting onions is dangerous. I think I've cut myself cutting onions more times than anything else when I was working professionally in kitchens. And I'll tell you why right now. It's because if you want a super precise cut on the onion, you have to cut it twice. Once lengthwise and one shortways. So if you're cutting an onion and you need a super fine cut, the correct way to do it is to cut it this way and then cut it this way. I really don't recommend this for home cooks, especially if you're not really good with a knife. And hell, even if you are, you can end up cutting yourself. The onion naturally has these ridges in it, so it's all half circles here. So we're just going to cut it this way. Just kind of cut on the bias and go pretty thin. If you have a monster onion, you might have to cut it the other way too. And I'm going to demonstrate the correct way to do that here shortly. But I find that this is much safer, and you still get a nice fine dice. Not perfect, but good. So you can see I always take my time on onions, because as I said, I cut myself a lot. And I'm frankly a little rusty with the knife. Okay, so we'll get that cut up. So if you're going to cut an onion long ways, Stretch out your hand as far as you possibly can and place the onion on the palm of your hand, and then you drag the knife through. If you keep your fingers all the way up, it's pretty hard to cut yourself, but the knife can slip. You want to cut about 80% way through the onion. And then you do the exact same thing we just did before, cutting it this way. Save that for later. So you can see not too much of a difference between the way they look, but this one is slightly more uniform than this. I'll drop that in our bowl. Pico De Gallo, in my opinion, is always better after it sits a day too, because the moisture leaches out of everything and makes it better. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a little salt here to start the process of the moisture coming out of the onions. And give our cutting board a little wipe. I'm going to turn my beef down here. I can hear it bubbling. All right, very good. All right, next is going to be the tomatoes. I'm going to guesstimate 3 tomatoes should be good here. Little tip for coring tomatoes. 1, don't use a big knife like this unless you absolutely have to. You want to use a paring knife. But a tip is put your thumb at the edge of your blade like this, and then stick it into the tomato and turn the tomato, not your knife. Your thumb will be the guide and help you core the tomato. Of course, you can buy a tomato corer too, but mushy tomato. It's a pretty safe way to do it. Just make sure you're turning the tomato and not your blade. Now, not going to lie, my knife's duller than I like, so cutting these tomatoes can be kind of a pain. If you have a dull knife, a good way to do it is start your cut at the very tip of your knife. This will help get through the skin of the tomato. And just kind of drag it through. All right. Also, tomatoes will dull your knife really quick, so if you're cutting tomatoes, it's definitely something that you want to steel your knife directly afterwards. That and like peppers definitely will dull your knife very quickly. Okay. Put these to the side for later. You can do the exact same thing you did with the onions to cut your tomato by cutting them long ways and then this ways, but unless you have a precision sharp knife, it's a good way to cut yourself. So we're going to make little stacks of 3 here. Little butts out of here. A good tip for getting uniform cuts on just about anything is never take more product than you're comfortable cutting at once. If I tried to make a 6 stack of tomatoes and cut it, it would fall sideways and then you'd have non-uniform cuts. Granted, these are not my prettiest cuts ever, but basically the more that you put in front of your knife, the harder it's going to be to get a consistent cut. Okay. I think that's going to be just about right on tomato. Some people like a lot more tomato in their Pico De Gallo, to each their own. I am not a huge raw tomato fan, though. In this preparation, they're very good. All right. Give it a little stir to see what it looks like. That looks just about right for me. Okay, next is going to be our cilantro. Always wash your herbs very well. The fields they're picked from are very dirty. Obviously, they come right out of the ground, and they're usually not washed properly. So I won't even mention what's probably on most of your herbs. Wash them. If you wash herbs and you have some left over, a good tip is to wrap them in a paper towel. It'll help the life expectancy of them by quite a bit. All right, next we have our lime. Just going to roll this on the cutting board, put a lot of pressure into it, try to break up some of the juice. There we go. Have it, squeeze it. Wow, that's a really dry lime. That was like way drier than I was expecting, so I'm going to have to run over to the fridge and grab another lime at least. I'm going to say 2 probably. There we go. You don't have to apply a ton of pressure, but if you just roll back and forth, you'll eventually feel it get softer. Makes the juicing a lot easier when you do get to it. Yeah, that's a lot juicier than the previous one for sure. Oh yeah, there we go. All right, we're going to taste first before we add any more to make sure. Just going to clean up our cutting board before we do that. A nice wipe. Fold it in on itself. Okay, good enough for the moment. Now we're going to stir this up, and what we're looking for mostly is our salt level and our lime level. That is pretty good. Actually, spot on for me. All right. So what we have left to do here is shred our lettuce. For me, shredded lettuce, it seems like a very simple thing, but the way the lettuce is shredded makes or breaks a taco for me. So we have this nice head of iceberg. We're going to cut it in half and then into a quarter. Then we're going to decore it. So how I like to shred my lettuce is take the quarter and cut it in half again to get these nice little slices, and then slice it as thinly as possible. The thinner, the better. A huge amount of super finely shredded iceberg lettuce really takes the taco over the top for me. So if you get into things that have like a lot of separation in them, if you go forward or pull back and then go forward, you can get a lot more precision on your cut without it falling apart. If you're trying to push down into it a lot, you can end up getting it'll separate out, and then you'll have not as thin of a cut. All right, good. So there's our lettuce for our tacos. Let's head back over and take a look at our beef real quick. It's looking pretty good. So once again, you want to keep this in somewhat larger chunks. You don't want it to all shred out and be these tiny little strings. You want to bite into a piece that's nice sized. It is too good. Well, I'm going to clean my cutting board here, and then we will start plating our tacos. All right, you might say, Frag, isn't a taco supposed to be a corn tortilla? Sure it is, but I love flour tortillas, and if you want to make them with corn tortillas, go ahead. You want to make them with hard shells? You can. No big deal. Now, the next part of making a great taco for me is you got to make sure the sour cream is evenly spread throughout the shell. You want to make a little circle inside the shell with your spoon, so make sure you get sour cream in every bite. It also stops your sour cream from globbing all over the place. Nobody likes that. Next, we're going to sprinkle a little bit of cojita cheese on the inside. We'll also top it with cojita. Cojita is a very nice, mild, yet salty cheese. So just a little bit will do ya. All right, next, we're going to grab our beef and throw it on there. Going to look for some nice, bigger chunks. The grain of the beef is running this way, so when you bite into it, if it's tender enough, you'll get a very nice texture if you lay the strands the opposite way. Next, Pico De Gallo. Oh man, I'm so starving right now looking at this. Nice mound of shredded lettuce. Oh, I forgot to cut that piece. Look at that. And then a smidge more cojita. So that's my shredded beef taco. I could eat these every night for the rest of my life. Hope you guys enjoyed. I'm going to hop back over to the talking cam here. Thank you, everybody, for watching Cooking with Frag. Thank you, everybody, for the support in making this this segment possible. It's really rewarding for me to cook and share my recipes with you. I absolutely love this recipe. Highly recommend it. Made some tweaking back and forth if you want it more spicy, less spicy. But I think that the shredded beef recipe is pretty spot on for what you can expect for a taco flavor from a shredded beef. That's all we got for tonight. Until next time, keep it dapper and be good to each other. That's all I got for tonight. Frag out. We'll hang out here and answer a few questions if anybody has any on the outro screen. So if you guys have any questions about the preparation of the beef or taco assembly, Pico De Gallo, feel free to ask. The recipe will be posted below the YouTube video. It's also posted on the Patreon post, which is in the newsletter. The newsletter is free for anyone to view, so you can catch the recipe right there. How do you eat hard-shell tacos? With my mouth. Why does a tomato make the knife dull faster? Because you're receiving a lot more resistance from the skin of the tomato. The skin of the tomato is hard on the edge of the knife. So if you're cutting peppers, which have that hard skin, or tomatoes, which have that hard skin, it's just going to dull your knife faster. It's important that you steel it. If you've not invested in a steel, it's like the number one thing to increase the life of your knife and have it sharpened less often. Yeah, if you like guacamole, this would be a great place to use it. Trying to think of other foods that dull your knife quickly. I can't think of too many. What's your opinion on adding chives to Pico De Gallo? Honestly, I haven't added chives before. I've added jalapenos before, garlic before, serrano peppers, even Anaheim peppers, but not chives. No, Anna did the cooking with Frag, as well as most of the emotes. What else would be good to add to Pico? Garlic, jalapeno, any pepper that you want. Ghost peppers, don't do that. You burn yourself. Anything your little heart desires. We use cajita cheese, St. Christopher, on the bottom and the top. Oh, I will say this. If you're going to store your beef overnight, you make a very large batch, let your liquid sit for a bit and strain some of the fat off. It's a lot of fat when you braise. This meal also freezes very well. That's true. Shredded meats freeze quite well, in my opinion. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. We'll be back at it tomorrow. It's 7 p.m. Pacific. Thank you, everyone, for coming out to watch. Do appreciate your time. Until next time, keep it dapper.